Hello there, and welcome to episode 6.2 of the Essie and Jesse podcast. This is going to be the third iteration of podcast episode 6. First episode, I was just giving you like a cat update it turned into, and then the second episode was some facts about child sexual abuse. This third episode is going to be my story with child sexual abuse, and if you're listening to this, it is going to be a little bit more graphic than my normal episodes. So if you don't want to listen, then I would turn away right now. If you are still here and you want to hear about my story of how I became the badass, strong woman that I am today, stay tuned. So, as I stated in the last episode in 6.1, I was molested by my grandfather, my dad's dad. Um, this molestation happened from the time I was about 3 or 4 until I was, I think, 13 years old, if I can remember correctly. There are some things that I'm going to say in this podcast that won't make sense. I will make an updated video in the future. I just have to be really careful on how I word things because I have family members that will come after me for this stuff that I say. Um, so if something doesn't make sense right here, believe me, please stay with me. And you will 100% get your answer. I just haven't had the time to uh make like 100% sure that I'm not going to get in trouble for what I say about things that have occurred that involve other people. I can 100% factually speak about this experience because it was my experience, and also because that person is now dead, and I it's already came to the police's understanding that this happened before the person passed away, and which being my grandfather. So now that they are gone, I feel like I can freely speak my mind without repercussion. I am also writing a book about this. It's not going to be completely about my, uh, story with my grandfather. It's actually going to be about my whole life. It's going to be like a memoir. So if you want to also stay tuned for a reading of some of my book in one of these podcast episodes, definitely subscribe. I will put a subscription little notification thingy on the screen if you want to subscribe. Okay, so a little bit, I'm gonna just talk about my family and how this all came to happen. Man, I might have to cut this into more segments because this is going to be a long podcast. So, I come from a working family. We're not millionaires. We're just regular people. My dad, his trade is working on cars. He's a mechanic. My mom, I won't state what she does for, again, those reasons that I had said previously, but she also works a regular job. Um, my father, he always worked in the daytime, and my mother always worked at night when I was growing up. So there was always one parent with us, mostly like, at all times. When there was not a parent with us, it was my grandparents or my uncle or we sometimes had babysitters, but very rarely. Uh, so yeah, but most of the time it was my grandparents that were watching us. It was my dad's parents. Um, I guess you would more so say that it was my grandfather watching us rather than my grandmother because she was disabled. She has also passed away at the time I'm recording this podcast. I mean, she will still be passed away. It doesn't, she's she's gone. Um, so to set the scene a little bit, my parents, they were not young when they had us. They were in their mid 30s. They both had jobs at the time. Both had a, house together, and they were not married at this point in time when I was born. A little bit after they had me, we moved to a new house, and they had my sibling. I'm not going to say if I have a brother or sister in this podcast because I don't know if they want to be included in this. I don't talk to my sibling. It's kind of like a mutual thing. More so, I don't want to speak to them. I also don't want to speak to my mother, so I'm not really going to include her in this unless I necessarily have to because I don't want to hear, any problems. It's a long story, but I've had some issues with family members in the past. Only recently I've gotten some of them resolved by way of court. Um, so yeah, I'm not gonna really disclose a lot of personal information. Anyways, so yeah, I moved when I was roughly like 1.5. We moved to a new house. They had my sibling, and then that was roughly 3 years after they had me. Um, so we're 3 years apart, and I just remember my parents. I think that they were still both working full time. I'm not sure. Uh, they're doing their trying their hardest. They have two little kids, and a new house that they're trying to probably put together and renovate. Um, they only got married a little bit before my sibling was born. So all of these things going on. So when my mom would need a break, I would go over to my grandparents' house. I was a little older. I'm not 100% sure if this is how it went, but I would assume that they kept my sibling home and uh tended to them, and then brought me to my grandparents' house just to make it a little bit easier with a newborn. That's just what I think happened. I'm not sure because there's so many times they all blend together. Like 10 years of having this happen to you. I mean, you're gonna have probably, I don't know, I'd probably say hundreds of times that this happened. Um, so you get the gist of it. So I would go over to my grandparents' house, and at this house, there was never like not an influx of people. There was always people here. This is why this story is so crazy because my grandfather, you would think that he wouldn't have access to me like this, but like he was so sneaky, and I still can't believe that it went on. I can't believe that it went on for that long. So yeah, there was always a ton of people at my house. We come from a big Italian family, uh, and there was always dinners and holiday parties and stuff like that. So anyway, so yeah, and then there was also some I will not name them, but they lived with my grandparents. One of the siblings of my one of the siblings of my dad lived with my grandparents for a long time. But they were mostly in their room. They never came downstairs. They were older, so they just wanted to be by themselves. So it was mostly my grandparents living downstairs. But then you had the factor of my grandmother was disabled. Um, my grandmother had problems with her knees, and she could barely walk. From the time that I was 3 when this started until the time I was 13 when it ended, she progressively got worse with her walking, and she had to be in a wheelchair by the time that she passed away. So so she was always in one room or another. It's not like she's walking from room to room and doing things like in the beginning, when this did start happening, uh, she would cook and things like that and move around a little bit more. But most of the time that I'm going to be talking about, my grandmother is either in the living room or in her dining room, not moving, and my grandfather is the only mobile person in this house. Okay, so the first occurrence that I can remember of being molested, um, I was about 3 or 4 years old, like I said. This was around when 9/11 happened. Uh, my sibling had just been born recently, and a lot was going on, I guess. But anyway, I would be at my grandparents' house a lot, and I don't think I was sleeping over at the time. I was a little too young for that, but I would be over there on the weekends or if my parents needed a break, and or even if I just asked to come over, like I loved my grandparents. Um, well, I loved my grandma. I not too sure about my grandfather. I thought I loved him growing up, but now looking back at it, it was like a false sense of love because I mean, what happened, and it was just very of just a strange relationship to grow up with. So, I I would say that I put up with him. I would not say that I loved him like I did my other grandparents, but I loved going to my grandparents' house on the weekends, and even my other grandmother, I would spend summers, at the park with her. And then in a little bit, I'm going to talk about, I used to spend summers at a campground with my grandparents. So the first instance of me being molested was, I remember it being around 9/11. There was a lot of things that happened in my family around this time. My sibling was born around that time. So, uh, there was just a ton of stuff going on. I won't get into it, but one of my family members passed away, and we had decided to clean out their house for the other family member that, is dealing with all of this. So my grandparents would go over there and my grandfather would go over there and help clean out the house and things like that. So I rode my bike over there one day with my grandfather, and I just thought it was going to be a normal day. We're going to go. I thought it was a little creepy because I was weird with death when I was little. I'm still weird about it. It freaks me out. But during this time, I was like, you know what? It's my great uncle. It's their house, and maybe it'll give me some sense of like they're still here or something like that. So I went with my grandfather, and we go upstairs, and I thought we were looking for some stuff to bring downstairs and put away, whatever it may be. I turn around and he's like, "Get on the bed." There was a twin size bed, and I'm just like, uh. I was very like lost and I didn't understand, but he just kept reassuring me that like everything is fine and that like it's gonna make you feel good or whatever. I don't whatever gross shit that they tell you. I'm not gonna get into much details like with this stuff. I'm only gonna tell you like just basic what you need to know. But you can gather from this podcast what you will. Um, So yeah, after that happened, I was very confused, and then we rode our bikes back to my grandparents' house. It's not that far from where this my uncle's house was that we were cleaning out. So we go back there, and like I didn't tell anybody because I'm just like, what the hell happened? Um, I was, a little child. I didn't understand what was going on. But from there, it just got progressively like worse and worse. Like each year of my life from that point forward was just like another stepping stone in my grandfather's like weird fantasy land of like pedophileville that he lived in. But I don't like now that I'm an adult, I can't really remember a lot of the times when I was that young. That's just the one that sticks out in my brain. Uh, I do remember us we used to go to a campground, and we live in New Jersey, so we would go to the shore a lot. My grandparents, they had a camper and would keep it at this campground for the summer and then I guess bring it home. I don't know. Um, but there was a queen size bed in the back, and then there was a couch that would pull out into like a full size bed, I think. And then there was also a table, and then you would like push the table down and put the cushions on it, and then that was another bed. So we would all go down to the campground and hang out and stuff like that. Me, my grandparents were like the only ones that would really like stay there and sleep there. My parents, if they came down for the day, I usually ended up staying with my grandparents because I didn't want to go home. I loved the campground so much. Like me and my friend, there was this girl Emma that I don't even know her last name. I don't even know if she existed to be quite honest. But there's this girl Emma, and I remember going to her camper like all the time, hanging out with her. She had a brother, and we would just it was there was a ton of kids there. Everyone knew each other. All of the adults were friends with each other. We'd all go to like each other's campers and hang out with each other. Like if I was with my grandparents and they'd go to their friends' camper and just like go chill, I'd be there too. Um, so yeah, I wanted to stay down the campground more as in this little time period. I probably was about like I want to say 5 to 6 years old. I would stay down there. My grandparents would watch me on the weekends, and this gave my grandfather full access to me, uh, to molest me, when I was that young. My parents had no idea at the time. I didn't tell anybody, and we would go down to the campground, and I would be sleeping in the queen size bed with my grandmother, and my grandmother was a very heavy sleeper. Because I would sleep in her bed at home sometimes, like when I would sleep over there, like later. This is probably around the same time, but I would say around like 6 to like 9 years old, I would have sleepovers a lot, and I would sleep in my grandmother's bed with her. And she was a really deep sleeper, and my grandfather, this is a side note, but my grandfather would literally go in the room and like take me out of the room and molest me at the house, and my grandmother had no idea. I know for a fact she was sleeping. I could see her sleeping. Um, there's been times where like he would wake up and get me, and then as I'm coming back into the room for him to like bring me back, she'd wake up and be like, "What are you guys doing?" And I'd be like, and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, she wanted a glass of water, so we went stairs and got a glass of water." Or like they used to have a security system that would go off, and if that security system went off in the middle of the night because he's trying to take me out of her room, um, like she'd be like, "What's going on?" And so yeah, it was always an excuse with him, but that's a side note. Um, so when we were at the campground, I would literally like wake up sometimes, and he would take me out of my grandmother's bed, and bring me into the living room where the other bed was, and molest me there, and like no one had any idea this was going on. That's how sneaky my grandfather was. Um, like I've had people tell me that my grandmother probably knew that this was going on, which I will touch base on in another thing. But I firmly believe that when this was happening in the beginning to me, I don't think that she knew anything was going on. Um, that's aside from things that I will tell you again in another video. Sorry, this is like all scrambled. This is a messed up topic for me. It's actually getting to the point in this video where I think I'm just gonna like stop right here for a minute and just list off some of the things that my grandfather has did, because he's just like a conniving a-hole, and he's very sneaky. He was very sneaky. He's dead now, thank God. But like, I mean, I would, again, around this time of being like 6 to 9 years old, I would go get stuff from the freezer downstairs. They had a basement. And if they're like, "Hey, like, go get this cake because there's all these people. We're having a party, and there's all these people. Like, you want to go get the cake?" I was like, "Sure." So I'd go down to the, thing, go get the cake or whatever. Well, my grandfather would follow me down there and be like, "Oh, like, what's taking so long?" or something like that. If I couldn't find it, and he'd like come molest me there. Like, this man had no chill. Um, it, like, I don't think people grasp the like how crazy people are out there. Like there's sick people out there. I mean, I was just living my life. Like I'm just trying to go downstairs, and like my grandfather's taking advantage of that. There's also times that I'm thinking of right now that I can't even say on my podcast because it's just so graphic, or something that I don't want to hear it. I'm sure you guys don't want to hear it. There's times that like, he would prepare to molest me. Um, like have things ready, and I'm just sitting here as an adult thinking of this and thinking back to when I was that age, and it's like really hard to continue with this podcast because I'm have all these thoughts in my head now. But I want to do this podcast and I want to do this episode because I've overcome so much in the past couple of years, and now I can look back at this and know that this is something that I I didn't do anything wrong. This is something that just happened to me. It's not my fault. A lot of these guilty feelings and things I had from before have went away. I'm not going to say completely, but they've went away a significant amount um, in the past couple of years that I've been dealing with this. I can't even talk about everything that I wanted to talk about, which makes it even more irritating because I have a lot of family members that if they hear this podcast or if it gets back to them somehow, I will get in super big trouble. Not like, oh, like they're gonna be mad at me, like no, like legal trouble. So I have to be really careful with what I say on here. I can't even include a lot of what I want to say because it involves siblings or it involves other people, and that's not my place to like dox them or like out them on this topic. I mean, honestly, my sibling, I can't really like out them because they've already outed it. They've went to the police like I have. I will just say that. So it's not like it's not, it's not reported. It's unreported. No, they've went to the police. This happened to them as well. Um, they can't even deny it because they went to the police and things like that. So I mean, I don't. If they try to get me in trouble for this, I mean, I don't know what they want me to. It's the facts. This happened to both of us, and it sucks. But now jumping ahead, I wanted to take you through how I coped with this happening to me and um, if I tried to tell anybody, if, whatever it may be, any questions that you might have. The first question being, did I go to the police? I just briefly touched on this. But yes, I did go to the police. I went to the police in 2018, 2019. I finally had enough and I had a big sit down talk with my grandmother. She was still alive at the time. I had a sit down talk with my grandmother, my dad, and my husband, and I came out, and my husband already knew about what happened. He's the only person I had told before I went to the police. I had not spoken to anybody, no friends, not my parents, no one, about what happened. I did actually try to tell someone that I went to school with. I won't name names. They know who they are. I think that they should listen to this podcast. Um, if they do know who they are. Uh, but I tried to tell them, and they did not take it the right way. Um, so I just like didn't want to tell anybody after that. So it took me a really long time after I started going out with my husband to tell him, and I'm really glad I did because he's really understanding, and it didn't go the same way as this other person. I might actually, now that I'm thinking about it, send this podcast to that person and be like, hey, this is why I am the way I am, and I'm sorry if I like ruined your life or something. Um, because I don't think that they fully grasped um what I was trying to do at the time, and maybe like I didn't tell them in the correct way or something like that. Um, I really would have liked their help, and I really hope that they don't see me as a terrible person for the things that I've done because I was in this state during, I don't know, I'm just like rambling now, but so anyway, I told my husband, really understanding. Then I, told my dad and my grandmother. Um, my grandmother swore up and down that she didn't know that this was going on, and she had no idea. I don't know how much of that I believe now as an adult. I think I wanted to believe that when I was a kid, but now looking back at the situation, I'm not sure. And when I gave her an ultimatum of it's either me or him, you need to decide that are you going to pick your grandchild over this child molester? She picked him. So that also sways my opinion of my grandmother. Again, do with this what you will. My dad was, on the other hand, was like super understanding and wanted to, rip my grandfather limb from limb. They were both, again, my grandparents were both alive at the time. Uh, and the fact that my dad supports me means a lot. I can't really get into everything I want to say because of the conflict I have with other people, but this is the gist of it. So, after I told my family I was gonna go to the police, I actually had people tell me not to do that, because it would ruin their life and everything that they've worked hard for the past year, couple years, and stuff like that. To those people now, I say, fuck you. I'm gonna do what I want, and I can't believe that you would actually tell me that. Now that I look back at the situation, I can't believe that you would tell a survivor not to tell their story. I think that's fucked up. Sorry if I get a little heated. That just makes me mad, especially when it's your own family that's telling you these things, or so-called family. Not really my family anymore. But yeah, I went to the police. I gave them my statement, or I attempted to. So I went there the first day, and it was a weekend, so there was nobody there to take my statement, and they told me I had to come back on Monday. And then I came back on Monday, and the guy that was supposed to interview me took forever to come see me, and then finally interviewed me, and they were very, very rude about it, and not understanding at all, actually. I wanted my husband to be there as a support, and they refused to let him in there. Uh, it was Hamilton Police Department. I'm just gonna put them out there because they deserve to be put out there. I think that they are one of the worst police departments that I have ever seen, next to my own police department, which I'm not gonna name because that would dox me. But I yeah, I went in there, fully ready to tell somebody. I was really gung ho about it, and then they told me to wait. I came back Monday, told them my story. They go, wow, this was really a lot longer than I thought it would be. I was like, what the fuck is that supposed to mean? I came in here, what, you thought it was going to be a 20-minute ordeal? I'm like, I'm telling you I've been molested for 10 years. Like, what do you think this is? And ironically, it was the same person that interviewed me years prior when my sibling came out with this. Again, I'm not going to really get into the details right now, maybe at a later time, but I had the opportunity to come out at one point. I chose not to because I was scared for my own safety at the time, and I was not in a situation where I felt like I could come out with my story. So I waited until I was an adult, and then when I went to the police station, it was the same person that interviewed me, like 10 years prior. So that was interesting. I remembered them. I'm not sure if they remembered me. I'm sure they did. But after that was done, I felt a great relief off of my shoulders that I could just tell somebody that wasn't my husband, that I felt like I was like keeping a secret or something. Going to the police was such a big step for me in my recovery process from having child abuse happen to them, to me. I don't know why I'm talking in like third person, but after that, I felt really good for a while, and then I pushed myself too hard in school. I was taking like 21 credits at a time because I was having mania episodes in my bipolar, and I think I can do everything. Mind you, I did get A pluses, A pluses all around. I got a 4.0 during this time, so I'm very happy with myself. But I pushed myself too far, and that led me to having a mental breakdown. And then I started rehashing things about my grandfather and that situation, um, and ended up in the hospital. Uh, number of suicide attempts. I had a ton of suicidal ideation during this time. My bipolar disorder was like unchecked during some of this time. I was working and didn't have health insurance, so I was very stressed, not on medication, probably not eating well, like I said in my other videos. Um, I was drinking coffee, having headaches because I didn't know that the coffee was causing some of my headaches. My husband, he had just gotten back from being in Japan for 3 years, and me not seeing him and us trying to adjust to my new life of being married and living in the same house. Um, so yeah, it was just a lot of stuff, and it ended up going south after that. Um, and then I was hospitalized once more in December of 2020, and that was right before I had found out I was pregnant with my daughter, and I was having a lot of issues because I wanted to have a child, but I didn't know how to go about having a child because I was so afraid of children because of what happened to me. I have babysat in the past. When I was in Japan, for extra money, I would babysit on base, and since I had base access, I could go to like different camps and go babysit other people's kids for some extra money. But like even changing diapers, like I would like be very anxious. Like I did not want to change other children's diapers, let alone I was like I don't think I can change my own child's diapers. So like how am I gonna have a child? Um, and things like breastfeeding, I didn't want anybody touching me. I cannot, even now with my husband, he's very understanding. I sometimes there's times where I just don't want him to touch me at all. I'm like, leave me alone, don't hug me, don't sit next to me, like I can't do it right now. And you feel like a really bad person. So I didn't want to have a child and then feel like an even shittier person because like I can't do these things for my child. Um, so I was going through all of this, and I went in the hospital. I was, still, I wouldn't say I was happy when I got out of the hospital. I was still in that mood where I didn't think things were going to pan out for me. And then I found out that I was pregnant. And instead of me dwelling on, oh my God, I'm going to not be able to change diapers, or oh my God, like breastfeeding, I just can't do it. I started to focus more on the child that I was bringing into the world and how happy I was. And those emotions eventually subsided. But it's been a really long time. It was the whole time that I was pregnant, I'm just thinking to myself, how are you going to get through this? You need to get through this. If you're going to have a child, you need to change diapers. You don't necessarily need to breastfeed to be a mom, but that's something that I wanted to do. Turns out I can't do it anyway because of my medication. But even with my next child, I do plan on having more children, and I'm not even sure if I want to breastfeed when I have another child if I'm able to. I've been told that I might be able to with the medications I'm on right now, so if I get pregnant, I might be able to breastfeed. Uh, I don't even know if I want to do it still because it is such a weird foreign concept to me. Uh, I associate people touching my breasts as a sexual act because I was molested. And the changing diapers thing is not necessarily related to that, but I just feel like seeing other people's genitals that are not, you're not your own body. I don't think that that's okay because I was molested. So I actually didn't want to change diapers at first and stuff, but you get used to it. You love your child so much that you don't even think about that stuff. And now my daughter is almost 2 years old. I can say that I don't think about these things like on the daily at all anymore. Changing her diaper is no big deal because I love her. I don't want her to sit in a poopy diaper because I can't get over my emotions. It's just something that I've had to go through and I've had to work through. Um, I'm almost tearing up saying all of this because I just love my daughter so much, and to think that that's something that kept me from having children. Me and my husband, we were married for almost 6 years before I had my daughter, and I was just so terrified to have children and to have them grow up in a world where there are pedophiles and there are, child molesters and bad things going on that I can't control, and also just me not, not being, I thought I wouldn't be the best mom I could be because I had these problems in my life. I'm just really glad that I had her and I overcame that fear. I think this is turning into like a little bit of a tangent, little rant now. Um, but I just wanted to say there's people that spend their whole lives dwelling on issues. There's people that don't spend their whole lives dwelling on issues. I feel like I was a little bit in the middle. I feel like I spent the first half of my life thinking my life was really crappy and not doing anything about it or not knowing what to do about it. Now that I'm a little older, I've had some time to uh, look at those things and see what I can change. Um, there's some people that will never be ready, and that's okay. I didn't think I'd be ready either, but there might be one day where you just wake up and that's the day that you overcome whatever it is that was vexing you before. So yeah, I'm just gonna wrap it up here. But yeah, I'll probably make some more videos. If you guys want to send in some questions, like even just put them in the comments on YouTube or on Spotify, you can send them at yessieandjesse@gmail.com. If you want to send them to my email, and I will answer them. I can even do like some shorts videos on this if you want like some quicker facts. But I don't know. I wanted to make this podcast and just get a couple things off my chest. I think that I'm a weird person and I feel like people don't understand why I'm weird or why I do things the way I do. This is one of those things in my life that has really molded who I am and why I'm so quiet sometimes and why I don't keep that many people close to me. Um, or maybe you don't think I share enough about myself with you. Uh, if you're a friend and stuff like that. This is something to consider. If you know me in real life, if you don't know me in real life, I think this is something that you should consider for people around you. Everybody is going through their own thing, and you never know what other people have witnessed or experienced in their life. I've experienced these things, and I've witnessed other things that, boy, man, you'd be surprised that these things even happen. So yeah, I'm just gonna leave off the video here. Let me know what else you'd like me to talk about or ramble on about. Yeah, bye.